Black Lives Matter movement a deception? One of the most recent movements in the United States is the Black Lives Matter movement. This movement has been growing by leaps and bounds in this country, and has been fueled by what have been deemed acts of violent racism. But is this really the truth? I think the time has come to expose the deception, and to smash racism into oblivion once and for all.
What do you think people need to know about the construct, the group, Black Lives Matter?
They need to know it really means Black Lives Matter. Because you're believing the lie. The whole power behind Black Lives Matter is their ability to get you to stop dealing in reality and start dealing in guilt. You know in your soul it's garbage. But you can't say it because somebody might not like it, but you know. Black Lives Matter. Think of what they're saying. They're saying that every problem they have requires white folks to do something. What Black Lives Matter really is saying is that they believe white folks are superior. They believe white people owe it to themselves to take better care of their animals. They're saying, I can't take care of my problems, you're responsible. They will say it. They will say things like, you better start caring about us more. Are you kidding me? How can you care about me? I'm grown. Why would you? They believe in white superiority. They believe it. They're comfortable in that. So they'll come and demand for white folks, I need a $15 minimum wage. When they should be saying, I need to find out how to get a maximum wage. They go to white folks and say, I need low income housing. Instead of saying, let me figure out how to get high income housing. And so they want better education. Folks, the libraries are free. You can even go and monitor a class in college for free. If knowledge is power, go get it. What you're saying though is a degree is power. A degree is not power. Knowledge is power.
I believe that I'm able to stand here and discuss this with you is a testament to God's grace and his sweet, tender mercies, just to be quite honest with you. Because what we're doing and what we're trying to accomplish here is above challenging. It is. We're asking cops to do too much in this country. We are. We're just asking us to do too much. Every societal failure, we put it off on the cops to solve. Not enough mental health funding. Let the cop handle it. Not enough drug addiction funding. Let's give it to the cops. Here in Dallas, we got a loose dog problem. Let's have the cops chase loose dogs. Schools fail. Give it to the cops. 70% of the African community is being raised by single women. Let's give it to the cops to solve that as well. That's too much to ask. Policing was never meant to solve all those problems. And I just ask for other parts of our democracy, along with the free press, to help us and not put that burden all on law enforcement to resolve.
What advice would you give to young black men today to overcome their fear?
Become a part of the solution. Serve your communities. Don't be a part of the problem. We're hiring. Get off that protest line and put an application in. And we'll put you in your neighborhood. We will help you resolve some of the problems you're protesting about.
Any protests over the deaths of these cops today in Baton Rouge?
I don't know that.
Any riots or protests over the police officers in Dallas, Texas?
What are you asking?
It's a pretty simple question.
I asked you what's your message to the people. Their message is one of peace. What is your message?
My message has been clear from day one 2 years ago. This anti-cop sentiment from this hateful ideology called Black Lives Matter has fueled this rage against the American police officer. I predicted this 2 years ago. This anti-police rhetoric sweeping the country has turned out some hateful things inside of people that are now playing themselves out on the American police officer. I want to know, with all of the black-on-black violence in the United States of America, by the way, when the tragedies happen in Louisiana and Minnesota, You know that 21 black people were murdered across the United States? Was there any reporting on that?
There was a black officer who was killed today. But
Was there any reporting on that?
Sheriff, please, let's just keep the volume down. Go ahead.
Let me ask you this. Do we know that generally the American law enforcement officers are racist? Do we know this?
Go on.
I ask a question.
Do I know American general law enforcement are racist? I don't think anyone is accusing. If you're insinuating that people are accusing or saying that law enforcement across this country as a whole are racist, then your assumption is wrong.
First of all, this whole anti-police rhetoric is based on a lie. There is no data, and you know this. There is no data, there is no research that proves any of that nonsense. None.
You'd have to be more specific about what data and what nonsense you're talking about.
That law enforcement officers treat black males different than white males in policing in these urban centers.
There is data that supports
There is not data.
No, the president spoke about it. Cedric Alexander, who is a law
president has
enforcement
been
officer.
lying about it. He said it again the other day when he said black males are 2 times more likely to be shot by a law enforcement officer than white males. Don, that is a lie.
That is not a lie.
It is a lie.
Yes.
Show me.
Research.
Show me.
The research
Show it to me then.
that we have from the Washington Post. That
The Washington
facilitated a
Post
study.
debunked
There's
that
also
nonsense.
There's also research.
He also said this,
Sheriff,
Don.
There's also research.
He
from
continues?
A Harvard professor that also showed that black people are treated more aggressively by police officers.
No, you are
than other
wrong in your interpretation of that Harvard study, because I read the study. That's not what he said. He said he was surprised to find
that in shootings of the most severe in shootings, that he found no evidence that there was a difference. Also, it should be noted that that study was a very small sampling of police departments across the country. Many people did not find it credible, but it is also interesting that in that research, he found that blacks were treated differently when it came to aggressive policing, but for the most egregious shootings, he found no difference. That's what that study showed.
Well, based on what? Just generally? Are we talking about high crime areas? Are we talking about police officers being under attack? Because let's go back to where this whole thing started in Ferguson, Missouri. The lie was hands up, don't shoot.
Lumping a whole bunch of things into one. If we can do one specific
That's
thing
where this whole phony movement started. It started out as hands up, don't shoot.
You're talking about Black Lives Matter.
Right.
Okay. And again, I want to be very clear with you. I condemn all violence of any type, just for the record.
Was the situation between Mike Brown and Darren Wilson, was that police brutality?
But we're not talking about Mike
yes
Brown
or no?
and Darren Wilson.
I am.
No, if you're asking me what the Justice Department showed, the Justice Department showed that it exonerated Officer Darren Wilson, and that the hands up, don't shoot narrative was a false narrative. That has been reported by CNN and by others.
That was another phony report.
What does that have to do with that?
Every day you are constantly being told what to think by the programming that you're exposed to. Don't believe me? Watch this.
In consumer news, economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Now, the reason you hear laughing behind these clips is because this is a segment from a late-night talk show. But really, this is no laughing matter. What this clip shows is that all news is handed down from one entity. Every day you get to hear specific scripted things that one entity wants you to hear. And that's called propaganda, my friends. Often you get to hear about incidents that are falsely reported, if not complete hoaxes. Remember the club shooting that just took place in Orlando around 2 a.m.? Well, what about this?
How many omissions were there? Were there one? Well, then it could explain that one-off scenario that they originally talked about.
It's impossible to tell.
This was not a one-off.
Right. These are in two parts. There's an actual transcript, and then there's a summary of the rest. Here's what's news in the summary. Nobody died until 5:13 in the morning when the SWAT team entered. Prior to that, no one had been killed. The 53 that were injured and the 49 that were murdered all met their fates at the time of and during the police entry into the building.
This kind of throws a wrench into the narrative we've been told, doesn't it? In the description below, I have links to other significant events containing fabricated details, and I suggest you take a look at them. Now, though, we are being bombarded with all the stories about the corrupt police, and racism is being pushed at the highest levels.
But my main message is to the parents of Trayvon Martin. You know, if I had a son, he'd look like Trayvon. And, you know, I think they are right to expect that all of us as Americans are going to take this with the seriousness it deserves, and that we're going to get to the bottom of exactly what happened.
Does the president also look like any of the other people that are being gunned down in Chicago right now? I guess for some reason those people aren't important. Why is that? Is there an agenda behind these national news stories? If not, why haven't stories like this gotten equal attention?
Send me out another unit. Hey, what's up, man? No, don't. Come here. Come here, man. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Right here.
There's a New Jersey police officer who is truly a hero. He saved 3 lives in 10 days. Now he's getting an emotional thank you from the son of a woman he saved.
You make me cry already, man. These men have never met before, but the one on the left owes the other a debt he says he can never repay.
We were able to still hug and say I love you to our mom, Graham's sister, aunt, and friend. And so for that, my family is forever grateful.
I appreciate it so much. I appreciate it. On March 8th, Strockbine got a call about a woman who appeared to be dead on the front lawn. She was brutally beaten, had no pulse, and wasn't breathing. Strockbine started CPR, and after 3 minutes, she started breathing again. The 69-year-old, who wants to keep her name private, told police that her husband tried to kill her. 5 days after that, he revived another woman who was unconscious. Strockbine says it's just part of the job.
That day, I was so proud to be a police officer. I was so proud to work for this department. And, it reminded me why I wanted to do this job.
And those he directly impacted insist he's more than Evesham Township Officer of the Month. He's a hero.
4 days after that incident, Officer Stockbine saved someone else after a bad car accident. He broke a car window and pulled the unconscious man to safety.
36-year-old officer Jeremy Henwood ordering his fast food dinner inside a City Heights McDonald's. It's seemingly ordinary surveillance video except for what happens next. Watch as the officer is approached by a young boy.
I was looking around like, how am I do this? How am I going to do this? And then I went up to him and just asked him.
13-year-old Davian Tinsley needed 10 cents.
I just seen him a tall officer, and he looks pretty nice.
So he approached the officer and asked him, to which Henwood replied,
"What is the money for?" And I said, "Cookies." And then he said, "Okay, I'll buy them for you."
The video carries the haunting reality of a nightmare waiting literally around the corner. Officer Henwood was shot and killed by a shotgun blast, the McDonald's bag unopened in the back seat.
Wow, that's amazing, huh?
Today, Davian and his dad watched the video for the first time, their eyes glued to a scene they'll never forget.
People need to wake up to the reality that we are being pushed around by our emotions. and we are being pushed so that we'll act out in anger. We need to wake up, step outside the box, and think logically for once. Did you know that racism doesn't really exist like we think it does? Does that sound ridiculous? Well, let's use our brains. If I were to cut off your hand and throw it 10 feet from you, where would you be? Would you go with your hand? No, you would be standing right where you were. So you can't be a part of your body. If you peel back the layers, you will come to two options. Either you are a brain or you are a soul. Now, it's quite easy to prove that you are in fact an immaterial soul, and I have a video linked above which tells how to do this. But even if you mistakenly said you were your brain, guess what? Brains are all the same color. So there's no such thing as white people or black people. There are only human souls. So since this is the case, racism is simply an illusion. We are all in the same boat, and there are big holes in that boat. You hate corruption, you say? Have you ever done anything wrong? Have you ever lied, cheated, or perhaps stolen something? If you answer yes to any of those questions, then that means that you are also corrupt. All people, whether they be police, white-skinned, black-skinned, etc., are corrupt. Some might say, no, white-skinned people took part in slavery. Well, so did black-skinned people, since 1654 continuing right through the Civil War. Did you know about this? Did you also know that those slave owners were often not very kind to their slaves? I would pause this video and read this description of some of the negative accounts described here, and the full link is in the description below. The reality is that we know corruption exists, but if corruption exists, then that means that God must exist. Because without a true standard of perfection, then there can be no way of saying when something is better or worse, if we don't have anything to compare those things to. Without God, the concepts of better or worse can't possibly exist. So, if we are corrupt, then what we need is to be redeemed. Now, if you still don't believe in God, then please check out my last video if you want scientific and logical proof. The reality is that the entity controlling all the propaganda, and please watch my last video on the Matrix, is Satan himself, the true human racist. What's going on now is something the Bible has predicted for thousands of years. Again, I refer you to my last video for proof of this. And if the argument now goes to no, the Bible is just a book about how to enslave people, then please pause this video and read these scriptures and then get back to me. Despite what the propaganda has told you about the Bible, the fact is that the Bible tells exactly what is wrong with the world, and it offers the only true solution to the problems we face. By the way, if you're wondering what the true agenda is behind all this, it's simply to create another civil war. The current ruler of this world wants people of all colors, backgrounds, and positions to start fighting against one another. Their motto is out of chaos comes order, and that's what they want because this allows them to set up the one world government the Bible predicted long ago. This government will be headed by a person who seemingly creates peace among the chaos, and that person will be the Antichrist. If this is all news to you, then the reality is that you were enslaved. You have been programmed to ignore God, ignore reality, and to ignore that your own fallen nature further chains you to your own destruction. If you want to break those chains, then there's only one thing to do. You have to reach out to Jesus. You have to enter into a relationship with Him. Without Jesus, there's only death. But with Him is life, and He wants to give that to you freely if you just ask Him. Remember, the way of the truth means life, so we need to listen when the truth speaks.